Welcome back to Spot of Red. We're only a week from the Super Bowl. It's coming up this Sunday, and I would like to go ahead and do my end of the year rewards for the NFL. Let's go. First up, we have the most valuable player. So I'm using the finalists that the NFL provided, and that's who I will pick from just as they would. So for the MVP, we have 5 candidates, and I'll go over each one a little more in detail. But first, we have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott, and Brock Purdy. So let's take a look. First, we have Josh Allen. He threw for 4,300 yards with 29 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. A little more interceptions than you want. But he did have 524 yards rushing with 15 TDs, which was second in the league in rushing TDs. I mean, the rushing TDs are, that's freaking crazy to have 15 rushing touchdowns. That's almost kind of like what Tebow or some running quarterback would do in college, but not NFL. Now, he went through an offensive shift towards the middle of the season. You know, Buffalo fired Ken Dorsey. They brought in Brady. And after that, it seemed like Josh kind of came into his own more. Now, they started running with James Cook, and I think that opened up the passing game. You know, him and Diggs, they still are squabbling. Diggs' brother even came out and said that they're never going to win with Josh or something like that. But Dalton Kincaid came in, had a great rookie season, became one of Josh's favorite targets. With a young James Cook and Kincaid, he's got a good core now, even if he loses Diggs. I don't think Diggs is going to stay. They've been fighting for a long time. Honestly, I think it would be better for Diggs to leave and let them try to go get another top-tier talent. They still got Gabe Davis. But Josh had a great year, minus the interceptions. A little too many interceptions not to make it, but the 15 rushing touchdowns are pretty big. Moving over to Lamar Jackson. He threw for 3,678 yards with 24 TDs and 7 interceptions. He had a lot of rushing yards, 821 with 5 touchdowns. Baltimore was really running the ball a pretty good bit, and that's why his passing stats are a little down. But, they still won that number 1 overall seed. But Lamar, and I'm going to base my decision off the regular season as it should be, but we're only a week away from the Super Bowl, and he just couldn't get past Mahomes and the Chiefs. But it doesn't discount the kind of year he had. He had a tremendous year under Todd Monken as his new OC from the Dogs. But Lamar had a phenomenal year. He was my midseason MVP, and he didn't do too much to lose that. But I'll make my pick a little later on. Moving on to Christian McCaffrey, the running back for San Francisco. He led the league with 1,459 yards rushing with 14 TDs. He had 67 receptions for 564 yards and added another 7 TDs. And we all know they're going to the Super Bowl, and he didn't play the last games, so his stats could have been pushed a little more. But, this team is loaded. They have Ayuk and Kittle and Debo still. But let's not take away his stats and his play just because of the other guys around him. It goes back to that saying where a superstar creates better players around him. And with him opening up the field, it's helping those playmakers make those big plays. And that's why he's definitely deserving of this nomination for a MVP. Moving on to Dak Prescott, the QB for the Cowboys. Threw for 4,516 yards this year with 36 TDs and 9 interceptions. He brought those interceptions down. He only played 12 games last year with those 15 picks. He was really turning the ball over too much. He was able to bring those interceptions down. He also tied for the league in quarterback rating with a 72.7. Him and Brock had a high rating. With Dak's great season, it also spurred CeeDee Lamb becoming probably one of the best wide receivers in the league. He had 135 receptions this year, which really helped. Jake Ferguson came along, started becoming a good target for Dak. And, of course, he still had Brandon Cooks, Gallup, and Pollard. And everybody was kind of down on Pollard, but he still had 1,000 yards rushing. But anyway, going back to Dak, a tremendous season, another So another good nomination for the MVP. Lastly, we have the guy everybody's beating up on, and that is Brock Purdy, the quarterback that's about to play in the Super Bowl. He had 4,280 yards passing with 31 TDs, 11 interceptions, which is not bad. Like I said before, he tied with Dak Prescott with the highest quarterback rating. He only had 144 yards rushing with 2 TDs. Now, he showed how he can use his legs in the playoffs more, so maybe we might see that a little more next season. But he has a lot of talent around him, like I was mentioning with Christian McCaffrey. But he spread the ball out well. Ayuk is becoming a beast. He had 75 receptions. Kettle had 65. Debo was 60. I talked about Christian McCaffrey with his 67, so he spread the ball around really well. But the media has just been destroying this kid. But this shows you, I mean, he was Mr. Irrelevant. The very last pick in the draft, and it was the 2022 draft. I mean, take a look at the upcoming draft. We have teams willing to give up 1 to 2 first-round draft picks to go up to get Caleb Williams or Drake May or even Jaden Daniels. It just shows that you can get talent late in the draft. Brady was a late draft pick, and now we got Purdy going into the Super Bowl, and he's another good candidate for the MVP. Now, let's get to my pick. So my pick is Christian McCaffrey. Look at the stats. Look how much he's done for this team. And this has nothing to do with them going to the Super Bowl. I made my picks after they made the nominations, and the nominations came out before they had a chance. He's such an impact player. He had so many touches. I mean, look at those stats. That's my choice for MVP. I went ahead and put up there, I think the NFL will take Lamar Jackson. Moving on to the next award, we have the NFL Coach of the Year. So the 5 candidates are Dan Campbell, John Harbaugh, DeMeco Ryans, Kyle Shanahan, and Kevin Stephanski. All very deserving of this. So I'm just going to go through this a little more quickly, but we all know what Dan Campbell did. He brought the Lions back to a playoff game. He was the number 2 seed. He won the NFC North title. What a tremendous coach they have up there in Detroit. I am jealous, even though I think the Falcons got a good coach coming in. But he had a great year. John Harbaugh is next. He continues to just bring great defense, bring in the right people to help coach. He brought in Monken this year to help Lamar, and it definitely showed that it worked. But he is another one, leading his team to the number 1 seed. Let's move on to DeMeco Ryans. Gracious, what can you say about this rookie head coach? Players coach, they made great picks with C.J. Stroud. He's got a good young offensive coordinator that a lot of people are trying to hire as a head coach, and now they've actually given him some money to stay. And we'll talk about him coming up on the assistant coach of the year. But DeMeco took a franchise that for 2 or 3 years was looking very bleak. I know they lost a superstar due to some circumstances that the team couldn't control, but they had made a few bad picks on quarterbacks, but DeMeco came in, made all the right picks. C.J. Stroud was, again, just looking phenomenal. And he did a great job with Houston this year. And watch out moving forward, the AFC South. They're going to be very difficult to beat. Let's move on to Kyle Shanahan. Kyle just had another good year. I mean, he's number 1 seed. They were 12-5. They won the NFC West title. They're going to the Super Bowl, if that says enough. In the past, Kyle was having problems winning games that they were behind. They're starting to show that they can do that. So maybe he is still growing as a coach, which is scary. We had him here as an OC for the Falcons, and he helped Matt Ryan to his MVP season. So another well-deserving candidate. Going on to the last one, that's Kevin Stephanski with the Cleveland Browns. He lost Nick Chubb in the beginning of the season, and then he lost Watson, and he held this team together. They fought with that good defense. He brought in Joe Flacco. They brought back Kareem Hunt. I mean, you can't say enough for what he did to keep this group together, losing their two biggest stars on the offensive side to still make it to the playoffs. Very impressive. It's been a very impressive job by Stephanski, and Cleveland has their coach for a while. Now, for my pick of the coach of the year, man, it's Dan Campbell, man. Ever since I watched him on Hard Knocks 2 years ago, how can you not like this guy? Look at him. He was a player for the Lions. This guy, let's not look at what happened in the playoffs. He went to the NFC Championship, maybe went on fourth down a few times, too many, and should have just took the points. But this guy, he's hard not to like, and he did a tremendous job to bring a team that had not won a playoff game in over 30 years to win in their first playoff game. Well, number one, even getting them to the playoffs. But wow, what a great job, and he is definitely my pick for the Coach of the Year. Moving on to the Assistant Coach of the Year award, we have Ben Johnson with the Lions, Mike McDonald with the Ravens, Todd Monken with the Ravens as well, Jim Schwartz with the Browns, and Bobby Sloat with the Texans. We'll start off with Ben Johnson. He had a top 5 offense. I mean, the Rams dumped Goff off to the Lions thinking that he wouldn't do anything. Well, Ben Johnson has came in. They've made some good draft picks and has really turned that offense around. And that's why they won their division and was able to get into the playoffs. Now together, we both have the DC and OC for the Ravens. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC. That defense is nasty. They were number 6 overall in the NFL. Oddly enough, the offense was number 6 overall with Monken, and he's leading Lamar to a possible MVP. I mean, Harbaugh had it on easy street. I mean, both of his coordinators up for nominations for assistant coach. When they're doing that well, it really allows him to focus on other areas, and I think that's why they played so well this year. Going to Jim Schwartz, as I talked about earlier with Stephanski, the offense lost a lot. Well, the defense just came in and locked everybody down. They had the number 1 defense in the NFL. Let's not look at that Houston game in the playoffs. But right after losing Watson, they knew they were coming into every game knowing they're going to have to take a lot of defensive snaps and try to keep the team in the game to have a chance to win, and that's exactly what they did. Next up, we have Bobby Sloat, the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans. They did really well drafting C.J. Stroud. I mean, we all know he's very talented, but you still got to get the game plan in and have him understanding to release the ball, not hold it too much, use his legs a little more because he doesn't seem to do that sometimes. And there's not a ton of talent around him right now. The backfield was up and down with Singletary and Pierre Strong. And some of their wide receivers, they lost one of their Tank Dell got hurt and missed the rest of the season. So when they start building more talent around C.J. Stroud, that team is going to be absolutely more deadly than what they already are. So let's go ahead and get to the pick. My pick for Assistant Coach of the Year is Jim Schwartz. I think that when you lose so much on the offensive side, they hung in there. A lot of teams could have said, hey, we're just going to wait until next year when we're healthy. But no, the defense said, hey, we're going to keep our team in the game. Y'all just do enough to win, and that's what they did. And I want to give a lot of credit for Schwartz coming in and helping this team make it to the playoffs. The next award is the Offensive Player of the Year. So we're going to have many repeats from the MVP category, but let me go over the candidates real quick. We have Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey, and Dak Prescott. Some of these are going to fly through because I've already talked to them through the MVP. But first we have Tyreek Hill. He had 119 receptions with 1,799 yards and 13 TDs. Like I said here, he is the driving machine of the Dolphins' offense. Tua looked so much better this year, but a lot of it is because of this guy right here, and I think that's why they put him in here instead of Tua, even though Tua led the league in the most passing yards. I mean, Tyreek Hill is the Flash, And if he didn't miss a game or had a few injuries, he might would have topped that 2,000 mark, but he didn't quite get there. So the next three candidates, I'm really not going to talk about them because I've already discussed them in the MVP race, and that's Lamar, Christian, and Dak. Just listen to the spot before, but I'm going to go ahead and skip over to CeeDee Lamb. When I was talking about Dak, look at these stats for him. 135 receptions with 1,749 yards and 12 TDs. That 135 receptions is 6 overall in a single season, and that's only 14 away from Michael Thomas's record of 149. But the yardage is big too. That shows you how much yak he's getting. He also had 113 yards rushing with 2 TDs, and I definitely think it puts him in that top tier wide receivers, which he was already in, but this really solidifies his staple as a top wide receiver. So let's move on to who I'm going to give the award to. And I debated on this. This was really tough. I already gave Christian McCaffrey the MVP, so I don't think he should get the Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, is it Lamar? Is it CD? Dak? Or, I mean, this was one of the ones I debated the most outside of one that I'll talk at the end. Man, I'm going to tell you, CD was up there really close, but I'm going to have to give it to Lamar Jackson. He had a tremendous season. He was my MVP pick in the middle of the season, and like I said earlier, I didn't think he did anything to really lose that. I just think Christian did more to win the MVP, but that's who I'm going to pick for the Offensive Player of the Year, Lamar Jackson. Now we have the Offensive Rookie of the Year. The candidates are Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Puka Nacua, Bijan Robinson, and C.J. Stroud. And we'll start with the two lines. We have Jahmyr Gibbs. I talked about him earlier. He went to Dalton High School, right next door to the hospital I work at. He had 945 yards rushing with 10 TDs, with 316 yards receiving with 1 TD, and he is a speedster. Man, if he showed it in the playoffs as well, but he helped the Lions tremendously this year to win that title and make it to the playoffs. And Laporta, too. Could you not have went better with your first and second round picks? Laporta, 86 receptions with 889 yards and 10 TDs as a rookie. Laporta played through some injuries and just looked incredible. Great picks by the Detroit Lions. Moving to our next, we have Bijan Robinson with the Atlanta Falcons. That's my home team. He had 976 yards rushing with 4 TDs, 58 receptions for 487 yards with another 4 TDs. He broke a few Falcon records as a rookie. I was kind of disappointed with the pick because I really wanted Jalen Carter because I thought we needed more defense. We already had Tyler Algier, which is a good running back. I just didn't think we needed Robinson. He definitely has a chance to be a superstar, so similar to Christian McCaffrey. So let's see what Raheem can come in here and do. Next, we have C.J. Stroud. And what I'm going to read to you is not fake as a rookie. 4,100 yards with 23 TDs and only 5 interceptions as a rookie quarterback. I want to talk about a kid that's seeing the field. I mean, there's not much else there is to say. I mean, this kid is phenomenal. If you watch the Ohio State game versus Georgia, you could see how good he was. I'm sitting there going, dude, how can somebody pass on this kid? Well, he showed how good he is, and what a great pick by the Texans. Moving on to Puka Nacua. He is the Rams wide receiver. He had 105 receptions and 1,400 yards with 6 TDs as a rookie, which I keep saying phenomenal and incredible because they all are. This is great for football. And he is a great kid to pull for. If you saw him over the weekend with the Pro Bowl, I mean, he looked like a kid in a candy store. And to have these numbers with Cup on the other side just shows you what this kid is going to be in this league. Now moving on to my pick, and this is another difficult pick. Honestly, all 5 of them could be the Rookie of the Year with these stats, but there's only one that I can pick, and that's going to be C.J. Stroud. 5 interceptions as a rookie is just, you just don't see that often with that kind of yards. And then what he did with the team, they were fighting against Jacksonville, and then Lawrence got just really beat up towards the end of the season, and Jacksonville started losing games, and Houston took that advantage and swooped in and took the division title away. And this kid is only looking up for Stroud, and that's my pick for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. The next award is Defensive Rookie of the Year, and these 5 candidates are Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Joey Porter Jr., Kobe Turner, and Devin Witherspoon. We'll start off with Will Anderson. Back-to-back picks for the Texans with Stroud and Anderson. Talk about another, Detroit did well, and so did the Texans. He had 45 tackles with 7 sacks. Like I said, he's a great pick. The former Alabama star was a great pick for them, and he's showing it. He's all over the field, just like what he showed in college, and he was a great candidate for Rookie of the Year. Going up next is, I really wanted Jalen Carter because he was a dog from Georgia. Defensive tackle, had 33 tackles, 6 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and he fell into their lap on that 9th pick. I was really hoping that we might take a shot. He fell because of some off-the-field issues, but the tackles and sacks doesn't really completely show the force that he was showing on that defensive line, but I was proud to see him go up there and play for those Philadelphia Dogs and do really well. Next, we have Joey Porter Jr. He's a cornerback. He had 43 tackles with 10 pass defenses, 1 interception. A great second-round pick. This is a second-round pick. He wasn't even first-round talent. So, great pickup by the Steelers. Had a great year. He'll also just continue to improve. Then you have Kobe Turner, the defensive tackle, had 57 tackles with 9 sacks. Good gracious, this is a force to deal with Kobe Turner and Aaron McDonald in the middle. And it doesn't show that Aaron Donald is aging too much. So these two are going to be a force for a while. The last candidate here is Devin Witherspoon, the cornerback for Seattle. He had 79 tackles with 3 sacks, had 16 pass defenses, and 2 picks with 1 forced fumble. He established himself, like I'm saying here, as one of the best shutdown corners. They try to pick on the rookies. Well, they picked the wrong rookie to pick on this year because Devin had a heck of a season. And I'm going to go ahead and move to my pick. Another hard pick, but Devin Witherspoon wins the award for me. Look at the tackles, the sacks. Seattle definitely found one of their shutdown corners, and that's who I've got for my pick, Devin. And honestly, I don't know who the NFL is going to pick on this one. Maybe Will Anderson. This is one of the most wide-open awards for this season. For this award, it's the Comeback Player of the Year. I'm going to read through these because this is such an easy pick, even though there is one other guy that I just kind of want to mention briefly, but I'll go over the nominations. You have Joe Flacco, Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, Damar Hamlin, and Tua Tagovailoa. Tua had a great year. Matt came back, of course. Joe Flacco came out of nowhere, off the couch to help Cleveland get into the playoffs. I want to talk a little bit about Baker Mayfield. I think he is truly one of the best comeback players of the year, considering that he was a number 1 draft pick overall. Then he got shipped around to a couple of teams. It looks like he's found his home in Tampa. But look, I want to go ahead and go to my pick. Damar Hamlin wins this by a mile because, the guy basically died on the field, and he worked his way back within a year to at least get on special teams. He even played in the secondary just a little bit. This has been an incredible story. It's been all over the news throughout the year, which it should be. Congrats to this kid coming back. and he's definitely deserving of this award. The last remaining award, and what I mean by best for last, I'm saving the best for last. Over the years, I've become more of a defensive guy than an offensive guy, just because I don't think they get enough credit as much as the offense. Everything is looked at the quarterback and the wide receiver divas. I just don't think defensive guys get the credit that they deserve. The nominations this year for this award is DaRon Bland. You have Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, and Maxx Crosby. So we'll go ahead and start with Myles Garrett. He is the defensive end for the Cleveland Browns. He had 42 tackles and 14 sacks. He had 3 pass defenses, 4 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. He is a monster in that dog pound. He's a fun guy to listen to, too. He's highly intelligent and just a beast coming around that corner on the defensive end. Next, we have Micah Parsons with the Dallas Cowboys. He is a defensive end as well, kind of a linebacker too. He had 64 tackles with 14 sacks as well, 2 pass defenses and a forced fumble. And havoc, man. This is, I love watching Micah Parsons play. He is just pure havoc on the field. And he hustles after every play, running, passing. And he's another smart guy. If you've ever listened to his podcast, he really has a high intelligence for football. Then we go to TJ Watt, the defensive end for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 68 tackles with 19 sacks. Those 19 led the league. He had 8 pass defenses with 1 interception, 4 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and a fumble for a touchdown. Is he still the best? Man, he's showing it year after year, just like his brother. He is just a dominant force on the end. And what's sad is, God, the Atlanta Falcons could have had him. He went 3 picks after us, but there's no sense of crying over spilt milk. But, man, this guy showing that another very deserving nomination for Defensive Player of the Year. Going next, we have Maxx Crosby, the defensive end for the Raiders. Now, look at this. He had 90 tackles with 14.5 sacks, 2 pass defensive, 2 forced fumbles, 1 recovery. The one thing I wanted to point out on him is he had 23 tackle for losses. Now, TJ Watt, he had 19 tackle for losses. So every single tackle he had behind the backfield was a sack. So Maxx had 14.5 sacks, but he still had 9 more tackles in the backfield. Shows you, I mean, his motor never stops, but that means he's getting the backfield for running plays. This guy is fun to watch. And it's great to see all these great defensive ends that we have in the league right now. And the last guy I'll talk about is DaRon Bland for the Dallas Cowboys. He's one of their quarterbacks. He had 69 tackles, 15 pass defenses, which is nuts. He had 9 interceptions with 5 pick sixes. 5! God, he's definitely established himself as one of the best shutdown corners in the league. Some of the guys we were talking about, they're all first-round talent. Maxx wasn't, but DaRon, he was 5th round from Fresno State, coming in, doing incredibly well. Well, let's get to my pick, my last pick, and this is so hard. I wish some of these would be considered for the actual MVP, but they'll never give a defensive guy an MVP award. But my pick is Maxx Crosby with the Las Vegas Raiders. I want to say Oakland Raiders so bad. But anyway, they are in Las Vegas now. I can appreciate all of his tattoos too. God, this guy's so fun to watch. Like I said earlier, his motor literally never stops. And it's hard to pick him over TJ Watt. But with all the tackles and the other tackles for losses, I just think he has just a little bit of edge over these other 4 candidates. Not by much. It's just really because how many tackles he gets as a defensive end, and not all of them are just sacks. He is getting in the backfield to get stop the running game. And that motor, he never stops. Even if it gets past him, I mean, he'll hold the edge and then he'll come out and bring the person down from behind. He's become my favorite player outside of my Atlanta Falcons. I have a lot of guys I love on my Falcons, and they are always my favorites, but I really like Maxx, and I still think he really deserves this Defensive Player of the Year. Well, that's my end of the year season awards for the NFL. As always, thank you for listening to Spider Red. Hit that subscribe or like. Tell somebody you love them today. Later.